So the pre-list. Final touches. This is the part where John spends a lot of time doing, is walking the property for the aesthetics of the house. So this is kind of what, you know, Dave was brought up before about landscaping, curb appeal, and all those things. This is a time where you want to make sure, because we made this mistake at the beginning too. We just looked at the house, just the house. And when we finished, we turn around, we're like, oh shit, there's still a jungle in the backyard. You know, well, that's another $3-4 grand that we have to spend cutting these trees because they're draped over the house. This one's rotted. You know, things that we weren't taking into account. The fence is falling down. You know, there's holes everywhere. Like, these are all things that matter because people, you know, when they go to a house, they don't buy, oh, but they did new electrical. That's cool. No, they buy the pretty, right? How does the kitchen look? How does the yard look? How does the front yard look? How does the bathroom look? It's all the pretty stuff. They're not going to look behind the walls and realize that what type of insulation you used. You know, they don't pay for that. They pay for what looks pretty. And that's where, you know, that's one of the things that you do a lot, right? Is making sure, how are the finishing touches? How's everything? Do the doors open and close right? Are they framed right? You know, stupid little things, but it's all important things that matter when the house is getting ready to be listed.
You were asking earlier, like, how much does that stuff matter nowadays? And I think it drastically matters. You got to do anything and everything you can to make your house look better than the house next door. So, I mean, like power washing the driveway. It's very simple, very cheap to do, but it makes it nice when somebody rolls up onto the house and sees a nice, clean, freshly power washed driveway. It looks great in the pictures too. So I have in here, like, you also like painting the front of the house, the accent color of the door to make it pop, make it look different, make it look nice. Then you have like the doing landscaping. Landscaping, well, it can be expensive. It makes a huge difference when somebody rolls up on that house and sees black mulch and nice curbing and stuff like that. And I see this all the time too. It's like, for God's sakes, mow the lawn. I don't know how many times I've seen people take pictures of the house and like the grass is overgrown, and then you roll up on the house and it's like knee high. It's like, it doesn't look good. Because when you have people that can roll up like that, I've talked to several agents, they'll walk in a house, say, oh, first impression, I mean, picture worth 1,000 words kind of thing, where they walk in, they see the tall grass, the crummy driveway, and okay, this doesn't look good. They didn't really finish that. How many other houses we got to look at today? Maybe we'll come back to this one. I never will. I was like, they have options, they will go past. So you have to make those details look nice. And like the last 2-3 years, you didn't need to do that stuff. And it really was even before the pandemic. We saw it in like 2019 where you could really start selling stuff and get away with a lot of things. But now you really got to put the finishing touches. You got to finish the caulking. You got to make the downtown area. You got to build your walls straight. I don't know how many times I've gone down there and see some of those old historic homes and you walk in and you just see the wall curve as you're walking through the house. So you got to make those finishing touches. What the buyer sees is what they're buying. So you got to do everything you can to make that look the best way and give that first best impression as you possibly can.
Yeah, it's not just saying, okay, the cabinets are in, the floor is in. It's like, no, does the floor look good? Should you put a quarter round because, you know, they didn't butt it up close enough to the trim, or something happened? Should you caulk a door? Do you need to fix something? It's like everything needs to be buttoned up.
And I mean, one thing we do this too is like have somebody with fresh eyes walk through the house. It's very easy to develop tunnel vision when you go to the same house every single day and you just want to get the job done, move on to the next thing, and then a fresh set of eyes come in here, and then for the first time, it's like, why didn't you finish this? Why doesn't this look good? Whether this door doesn't shut right, it looks weird. Like, you just don't even see it because you get so used to it. You're going there for a specific purpose. You go in, get that thing done, then you get out. So having fresh eyes go through right before you list or get pictures done is always like a very, very important thing to make sure those things get buttoned up and look nice.
Especially when it's been a long project. If it's been a project that's taking you 6, 7, 8 months, it's very easy to even miss that. Like the walls were painted all messed up, right? Like that happened to us that one project we were managing, John goes to it and he's like, dude, what the hell happened to the walls? I'm like, I don't know, they're still up, you know? And then when I looked at him, like he was saying, this is just batches everywhere. I was like, oh, that looks terrible, you know? But you just weren't looking at it. You were looking at whatever that scope was for that day, right? And you forgot all about the walls and you forgot all about those finer things. Pictures, they're very important. This doesn't mean iPhone pictures. I don't care how nice your iPhone is. You are not a professional person to be taking pictures with. So you want to hire professional pictures because people shop online first. Those pictures is what sells them. You understand? And having a picture of you standing in front of the bathroom mirror taking a picture, that's not good.
You don't see much anymore. My favorite was when the GoPros were real big. People taking pictures with GoPros. You had that, like, the bubble vision around it, and they were using that for those photos. It's like, really? This is a $300,000 house, and you got bubble vision everywhere? Come on.
Yeah, because you can't really see. You see everything. It looks through a fishbowl, right? So and they do that because of the wide angle. Maybe they're smaller rooms, whatever it is. But it looks terrible. And the quality of the pictures matters. They edit it so the grass is greener, right? They edit it so it's like if it was maybe a little overcast, they brighten up the sky, because it's like when they look at those pictures, it's like, wow, this is a beautiful home. Now they go to the house with those levels of like kind of optimism, and kind of like what John was saying about when you roll up to a house and it's got bad curb appeal, you now go into the house with a level of pessimism, right? Because that give you a bad impression. So you're taking that bad impression into the house, and you're looking for things that just don't, what's off, what's not right. But when you come in and you get that nice wow factor from the start, you go with that kind of wow factor throughout the whole house. So it kind of fools the mind a little bit, and it helps with getting them to like your house more. Staging is another very important area. We've used staging strategically when there are parts that we know are not as pleasing of the property. So we'll use staging to direct attention from those areas, right? So it's like, or we've done a house that had just a massive room. It's like, what the hell do you do here? It didn't have like a defined space. So we get nice professional staging done, and if they come in, they define each space. So when the homeowner comes and they're looking at the property, they don't have to reimagine what they can do. They see, and it automatically helps them, like, I can do that here. That makes sense. This looks pretty, right? Or they might look at an area and be like, oh, I think this living room is too small. But with proper staging, it's like, oh yeah, everything fits. I can make this living room work. So you don't want to leave anything up to their imagination. You want to make sure that you're like, this is what you can do. And then all of a sudden they walk in, it's like, yeah, they had a dining room table there. They had couches, they had a TV. It makes sense, and staging can really help elevate, especially when you're trying to get max price. It can help you elevate that listing when other properties they're walking to is just a cold, renovated house, and they walk into you and it looks much warmer because there's some nice picture frames, there's some nice couches, rugs, and stuff like that. Anything on the staging?
I mean, not really. It's just like,
how much is staging right now, more or less?
I mean, 15 to 2,000, depending on the size of the house, how many rooms and stuff you do. I think it's around where you pay for like your average 3-2, 1,500, 1,700 square feet. We're doing the kitchens, the bathroom, the master bedroom, and then all the living areas. And it's usually like 1,500.
Oh. No, that's what you're paying for. They come, they design it, stage it, and everything.
Yeah. So it's usually like $1,500, $1,700, and then there's usually like some kind of recurring fee for the length of stage and stuff like that. And they'll usually do a pretty good job when they come clean it out. They'll sweep and they'll fill the holes if they put some pictures up and stuff like that.
And like John talked about before, when you run comps, you see what the houses are doing in the area and you try to be a little bit better. Sometimes staging is that little bit better. Where if they got two houses to pick from, one is staged and one isn't, yours has a much higher chance of selling because it gave them a much warmer feel when they walked into it. And remember, like, people buy on feelings. That's why we own houses. It's not, many times it's not the logical decision to make is get into that massive debt on a house that you can't afford, right? But it's the emotional feeling. It's like, it made me feel happy to own this, right? The American dream. And it's like, yeah, you're in debt now. So you got to play to those emotions. And then pricing. So this is all you, buddy.
When it comes to pricing, where's my slide on that? I mean, it's very data driven. It's pretty simple because, like, whenever we're running comps at the very beginning, we have a price in mind. So we look at the inventory levels, we look how fast the property is moving, what they look like, and then before we do the final pricing when we go, that's exactly what we do, is like look at what something is doing. Know your price point, what the inventory levels are, and what you can do with that. So it's very different, especially now, pricing something at $450,000 than $220,000. There's no inventory at $220,000. There's a lot of inventory at $450,000. So you really kind of have to understand, like, when you can push the market and when you can't. So we listed a property in Shirts and it was listed for $230,000. We went through 3 separate offers and they kept falling through for other reasons and stuff like that, but they always kept coming in negotiating, saying, "Oh, we'll give you 220." Nope, I'm not taking anything less than 230. Well, we'll take 225. Like, best luck. I'm not even gonna bother counter. All right, we'll do 230. That happened 2 times in a row, getting us back up. The first time we got an extra $10,000 out of it. The second time was an extra like 7,500, because I knew what the inventory levels and what that price point really did in that area. Because you draw a big circle around that, there's nothing under 300,000 in that area. So me being at 230, now the house still has to appraise for that, so you kind of have to play with those numbers. But you got to know your demand for those areas. So that's always what we do, is looking in our neighborhood, looking at our area, looking at our price point, looking at the city, and trying to make our best educated guess of what the best way to price that point or price that house is at. And that's the kind of really what we do, is look at your inventory levels in your immediate area, what's selling in that area at that price point, because that's your competition. That's what your buyers, when they're looking for a house in this area for $350,000 and there's 6 houses, you got to look at those 6 houses. Do I go under them so I can be the one that they go after? Or do I try to price above them because I have a superior looking house? So I take a very data-driven approach to picking the price point for my house. And it's usually based around the inventory and how fast things are moving at that price point in that specific area.
And I think that's a very important point of, like, if there's a lot of days on market, you can flip historic homes still, right? Just price them right, or understand that they're going to just sit on the market much longer. So it's like, can you put a superior product at a good price, or do you price it lower than everybody else? And it's like, yeah, it's the same as them, but I'm cheaper, right? And you make that adjustment, and that's why it matters when you're running your numbers before you buy it, to make sure, what are the days on market? Do I need to price it at a discount so I sell quicker? What's that going to mean for my numbers, right? Just because the comps are up here doesn't mean that you need to sell up here, right? Because then that's going to take you more time, cost you more money, and the whole goal is to, you know, make as much as possible. This isn't always best. There's a lot of times that we get, you know, good full ask offer, but the terms aren't very, very favorable. So what are the things that you kind of look at with?
It's a lot of it is like looking at who the lender's going to be. And you'll be shocked of how much information. So a lot of us are agents. The ones that aren't, ask your agent to ask these questions. It'll blow you away the kind of information people will divulge about their clients that they're not supposed to. Lenders are the same way. So basically, just leave open-ended questions like, well, tell me about your client. Have you guys been searching for a while? I mean, how bad do they want this house? Especially when they're asking for concessions and things like that. Same thing with the lenders. We've had lenders just like, oh, they want like $20,000 in concessions. And you ask the lender, like, well, tell me what's in your client's file. Oh, it got a great job, plenty of cash in the bank to float the loan. Like, this is a solid buyer. It's like, thank you. Now I'm going to counter back and say, you don't need all these concessions. And it gives you a better idea. So when it comes to taking those offers, like when he says like highest isn't always best, you have to understand like FHA VA is going to be harder to qualify. I will gladly take a conventional at a little bit lower price than an FHA. When we listed that house in Shirts, one of the offers we got was like $15,000 over the asking price, but it was FHA. And I was like, there's no way this house is going to appraise for that price, which means if that buyer wants to go buy that house, I got to drop the price to whatever it appraises for. But I had a conventional offer competing against it at the asking price. So like I went with that one because I would have much more confident that one was going to close. So those terms and those contracts make a big difference when you're looking at contracts and stuff like that, and like the highest is always best and or isn't always best.
And then you want to make sure that, because it's what you're trying to avoid is that back on market status, right? When you list, you take an offer and then it's back on market. It's like, what happened? That's everybody's immediate reaction is like, something's wrong with the house.
That now, one thing, and we've had this happen twice in the last year, is asking the agent on the other side, the buyer's agent, is your client aware of the payments? Have they seen it? It's happened twice where we made it through option period, like the last day option. They saw what their payment was going to be, got scared and backed out. So that's a big thing right now, is like, do they understand what their payment's actually going to be when they actually go through on this house? Because you don't, like you said, you don't want to hit that back on market status. So asking your lenders, the agents, and that's one important question that I forgot to mention earlier, is to ask them, like, they're aware of what their payment's going to be when they buy this house.
Yeah, and you spend a lot of time educating the buyer's agents, because a lot of buyer's agents, they don't know what the hell they're doing. We had somebody give an offer on one of our properties that when we submitted the proof of like the foundation work and the transfer warranty, they're like, oh, I don't want houses with foundation issues. It's like, well, your agent should have told you that you're in San Antonio. You know, it's like, that's not really an option there, buddy.
Always I tell people there's two types of foundations, the ones that have had foundation work, the ones that are going to need foundation work. Like, you're going to have foundation work probably, unless you're in the hill country.
And then, so because of that, you know, it wastes our time as well. So John spends a lot of time educating their buyer, their agent, so the agent can educate the buyer, because the agent has that trust and bond with the buyer. So if you can get that agent to like you and work with you and you bring them value, they'll go to bat for you with their buyer. So they end up working with you. And that's what you want. You want them to work with you so you can close on the deal, right? So that's why it matters that you hire a knowledgeable agent. I have a student that recently, he put a property on the market for, he wants $330 for the house. They put it on the market for $299. I was like, kind of the other way there, buddy. And he's like, well, my agent said that, you know, will cause a bidding war. And I'm looking at the comps. I was like, no, none of the houses there have been outbid from what their listing prices were. Like, and plus an extra 30 grand of outbidding. I was like, it's not that hot of a market. And what happens is the highest offer they've gotten in so far has been 305, right? And it's like, you can always price high and come down, but you can't price down and go up. It's not like, psych, you know, that's not 299, it's 319. It's like, that shit ain't gonna work. You know, people are not gonna feel like they're getting a deal now. But the problem is the agent didn't know what the hell they're doing. So getting a knowledgeable agent and not necessarily a cheap agent matters. You want somebody, an agent that knows how to sell the same way you want to partner with an investor that knows how to flip those types of property. You want to partner with an agent that knows how to list those types of properties, right? So we work right now with an agent that he's very knowledgeable in the properties that we have him list. He knows that market inside and out. So if we're missing something, he even comes in and says, hey, you might want to put, you know, shades on this house. You might want to do this. You might want to do that, because he knows the buyers that are coming in for that property. It helps us sell them much faster. Negotiations. How do you handle that, boss? Yeah. Negotiating offers and everything like that.
The negotiation is, and like I said, it goes back to the knowing what you have and knowing your market that you're currently in, how much bargaining power you actually have. So it's like at 450, I'm taking concessions that they give them because offers don't come in that very long. At 230, and I'm still getting multiple offers, I'm gonna push back on that kind of stuff and then really weigh them against each other. So when it comes to negotiating, it's exactly what I do, is like knowing the product that you have in the market that we have it. So 3 years ago, anything sold that could get any type of financing on it, and there really wasn't that much of a difference to it. But now you really got to understand like what your product is, and it's usually like the more affordable the house is, the better odds that you're going to have that you can get a bidding war and kind of push each other against it. But like, you want to avoid that back on market with all costs. So you can push a little bit, but don't push too hard on when you're getting offers like that. So that's really how I kind of handle the negotiations, is just like knowing my product and how, because you're the one that's in your financial position. And it's like, how long do I want to hold this, and how much do I want to push to try to get this? To where if you're kind of like on the brink of like, man, I really need to get rid of this house, but I don't want to take that offer yet. It's like, if you're having those thoughts, just take the offers and move on to the next project.
And don't be so emotional about your property, right? Where if you're getting all these buyers coming in and they're all kind of giving you a very general consensus, and you're like, no, I know I can get this. It's like, look, you know, maybe take this analysis, take this data, and you might have to take a hit on this, right? Because the market is kind of telling you you were wrong. Listen to the market, because the more you hold out, usually the worse those offers get. You understand? Because you're also holding on to the property. If you borrowed private money, hard money, anything of the sort, it's costing you more. Houses don't like to sit vacant. They hurt themselves, right? Things start going wrong in the house. Somebody breaks into the house. Something happens. You don't want to be sitting with a house that's freshly renovated, just sitting vacant. You know, it costs you a lot more money that way. So inspections are, you know, always fun to deal with. So a trick that we learned many, many years ago is leave something very noticeable for the inspector to catch. Because if you leave something very noticeable, very big, then when they give you all the other little shit, you say, no, but I'll give you this, which was already factored in. Because inspectors, it doesn't matter if you have a brand new house, everything is brand spanking new up to code, they're still gonna find something. That's their freaking job, is to just be a pain in our ass. So you wanna make sure that you're always leaving something on. And do you handle inspections any other way, as far as like they flag something that you believe it to be bullshit?
My favorite things to leave undone is like labeling the electrical panels. They always ask for that stuff, and I just don't label it until the very end, because like you said, it makes it nice that everybody wants some form of negotiation to go, and they want to feel like they're getting something. So it's like there's little things that you just kind of leave undone, and then just know you're going to give that to get away some of the other smaller stuff. The air conditioners, I service it right before the inspector goes, because you'll get a ping or something like that. The inspection's done this day, I get my guy go over there and service the air conditioner that same day, because they don't want to go through and get like a really crummy old air conditioner and flagged, and then they start drawing attention to the ACs, because I mean, it's Texas, it's hot, they break. You don't want to have to drop that in your listing the very last time.
Basically like a service, just a service.
Yeah, just a normal service to make sure it's up top, running, cleaning, and stuff like that. Because that's usually always going to show up in an inspection anyways, or an ask and inspection report, because a lot of times home warranty companies will try to get out of making repairs because they'll say that's a pre-existing condition. So they want to show that, no, it was just serviced and working properly before we bought the house. So I always do it kind of right there at the time of the inspection, because even though like they will still ask for it, and then they'll say it's still wrong. It's like it was done the day the inspector went there or the day before, like it's running perfectly, but they're still going to flag something on it and they're still going to ask for it. So I always just have it done the day before to make sure it's running cool, because I've had it before when they go to look at a house, like, hey, the AC wasn't running today. And it's like, oh shit. Luckily that was during pandemic, so they didn't care. But make sure that air conditioner's up and running in the summertime and running well when they go do that initial house. I kind of put it as there, you and that other agent are on the same side, and try to win over that other agent too, and explain to them, like, we know what things cost if you're flipping houses. Just kind of work with that buyer, explain to them like, hey, it doesn't cost that much to do these things. You guys are both on the same side. You want to get paid for selling the house. They want to get a commission. Win over the other agent, and they'll try to go win. Their job is to go sell their client. So don't try to get too combative with that agent at all possible. Try to win them over so they'll go sell that client.
Yeah, because buyers, to them, you know, you didn't put a door in the pantry, right? To them, it's like, I don't know what that's going to cost, $1,500 to put a door in. You know, like they have no perception of the cost of things. To them, any little thing that they have to do, it's already a big turn off. They just want to be able to buy the house, open the door, hang their clothes in the closet, and be done, right? Like, they don't want to be buying a house that they have to go and do work to, especially when they're paying for retail. So you want to make sure that those are the things that, like, don't have your, you know, when he works with agents, is to not have those buyers overthink something that's very simple to solve. And lastly, low appraisals.
So yeah, especially right now, you're starting to see that stuff, because they don't want to be the one that appraised that house and all of a sudden that person gets foreclosed on. That can look bad on them. So you got to realize, with a low appraisal comes in, you're not going to get $30,000 out of it, because then that's admitting to the appraiser that, like, they didn't do a good job. And no appraiser likes to be told what to do by a real estate agent, because they have to be, I mean, it's a much longer process to become an appraiser than it is to become a real estate agent. So when you're trying to combat those, you have to keep it very factual, and you have to understand. So I always tell, it baffles me how many people don't understand, like, what actually appraises and actually drives value in a house. And when you're combating those things, you got to keep it very factual to the things that actually drive value, and that's overall condition. And they can't give you $50,000 for condition, because I've seen houses that are like we walk in them, it's like, this house is completely dated, and I got a freshly brand new house that costs $50,000, and they only give you $10,000 for that. Pools only give you like $10,000, $15,000. They don't give you the $80,000 that they can cost in value. So you can get small adjustments. I think I've got like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 in adjustments before, but not very often, and it's very small amounts that we can get those extra little bumps. But you have to give factual statements to it, and you have to be very, very polite. Don't go in there, it's like, how can you be so dumb not to take this thing? They're just going to turn you down right away. Say, I'd like you to with all respect, due respect, I'd like you to consider these few things, and give them something that they can use to potentially give your house that higher value, whether it be a different comp that might be a little better that they missed, or a line item that says, like, hey, I have a different style of deck than this guy has over here. And they don't have to do it at all. They can say, nope, sticking to my value. I had a guy one time, like I had a nice brand new wooden deck and he didn't give any concession for that to my house for a house that just had the 1x1 concrete pavers dropped on the dirt. He said in his mind, those were equal. And it's just like, son of a bitch. The siding, same thing. You can put nice cement fiberboard all the way around it, and they might have that old 1980s like fiberboard stuff. That would cost $10,000 to reside this entire house. He's like, it doesn't matter to me. It's got siding on it, like brick siding, unless they can find a specific reason that says every single one of these houses had brick siding, sold more from every single one of these houses that didn't. And it's like, and that's gonna be very hard to determine because it doesn't always say, like everyone says, oh, there's 4 bedrooms worth more than 3 bedrooms. Not always. I've had plenty of times, 1 stories, 2 stories, they've all get in the kind of mix. They have to find a specific reason that you can say every single one of these 4 bedrooms sold higher than every single one of these 3 bedrooms, and they were equal square footages. So the only difference between these 2 houses was that extra bedroom, and that's what drove the value. So you kind of have to keep it to those kind of things and understand what they can do within those appraisals. You've got to really remember that you're telling them they did a bad job, and you want to be reconsidered for something higher to help you out more. So you have to be very polite when you approach that situation, and they keep it very factual that they might be able to say, oh yeah, I did miss that. I'll readjust the value.
With that said, that's it. So any questions?